My friends, welcome to the Sheep Get Sheared podcast, home of people, politics, and popular culture. I'm your host, Austin Creed, and my friends want to welcome me into the show this morning. You know, I was contemplating whether or not to actually do this show today because it's such a complicated issue, and by complicated I mean convoluted, and it's extremely controversial no matter which way you slice it. And even though where's my Bible? I usually have my Bible around here. I would really be willing to swear on my Bible that everything I'm about to tell you is true, because I have no reason to lie to you. I'll save that for the alphabet channels and the people who make their whole living, in my opinion, off of exaggerating the truth, subverting it, or just completely inventing it. So, what am I talking about? I know I'm already going off on what am I talking about? My friends, I would like to tell you today that I firmly believe, and I believe me when I tell you, I believe that racism is manufactured for profit. Now, do not get me wrong. I know that there are individual people who harbor racist sentiments. This is just a fact of reality. We're not going to pretend that's not true, because it is. However, this whole idea of systematic racism, white privilege, white fragility, black oppression, all that stuff ended a long time ago. It doesn't exist. There was a time when it did, but that time is not in the recent history books. I'm sorry to tell you, it's not recent. Now, when you look at the mainstream media, whether it be you could go off on the alphabet channels, Fox, MSNBC, CNN, ABC, NBC. You could go around the horn and you could name every single one of these organizations that day and night, if it bleeds, it leads, burns, it earns. If it's all about telling you the worst garbage they could possibly do to get you, to hook you in. Now, let me tell you, I firmly believe that when it comes down to it, these kind of people would sell their own grandma out for $1. And when it comes to all the race relations in America, they're the ones who are trying to tear it apart for profits. They're the ones who are pumping in the race factor when it has no place. And I also want to bring up a very important point that I would be remiss if I did not disclose to you. There was a gentleman by the name of Booker T. Washington. You might have heard of him if you were educated. If you're not, then it doesn't surprise me. For all of the, people like to bring up civil rights leaders. They like to bring up pillars of the black community. They like to bring up people like Al Sharpton, Jesse Jackson, MLK. You can go all the way around the horn. But you know who they don't mention? They mention Malcolm X. They don't mention, though, Booker T. Washington. They might mention E.B. Du Bois, but they don't mention Booker T. Washington. Why? Well, I'm so glad you asked. Because he happened to have pointed this out long before I was born and long before the civil rights frauds who are now just trying to cash in on something the younger ones are trying to cash in on something they never suffered from, which is slavery. And it was Booker T. Washington, who was born as a slave, by the way, in case you want to think that he's making this up and he's selling out. No, this guy was actually born into slavery and was freed. And then has the cojones to come out here and he talks about how, in his words, that there are certain, and okay, I'm going to quote him. This is not me. I'm quoting him. So if you want to say that I'm being hateful, you're wrong. This is me quoting him. He says, there's a certain class of colored people who will keep the troubles and the problems and grievances of the Negro race before the public. Learning they can make a living out of their troubles, they care about race issues partly because of justice and partly because it pays. You hear that part? Now, I didn't quote him verbatim, but because I didn't want to read his entire, he wrote books on this issue. I didn't want to quote him verbatim. But when it comes down to it, that is what he talked about, how there would be people of the African American, black, whatever you want to call it, community who would bring this up because they learn they can make a living out of their troubles. Now, now you may be saying, Austin, come on, it can't be like that no more. Really? Okay. Well, I would like to present to you Exhibit A, Pew Research Center. So here it is. This is done August 10th of 2023, so recent. It says about half of U.S. adults, 52%, they say, in the last 60 years, the country has made, they say that 52% of American adults say in the last 60 years, the country has made a great deal or a fair amount of progress in ensuring equal rights for people, all people, regardless of race or ethnicity. A third says the country has made some progress, and 15% say the country hasn't made much progress or any progress at all. Now, before I give you the results, I want you to guess on who is saying that there's been made no progress or very little progress. Please cast your votes now. Please cast your votes now. You ready? All right, here are the numbers. The country's progress on racial equality in the last 60 years by race and ethnicity broken down. Here it is. They say white adults, which I assume they mean European Americans, potentially Middle Eastern. I don't know. They didn't break these down to a science, but I'm gonna assume, I'm gonna reach out here. White adults, they say, are the most likely to say the country has made a great deal or a fair amount of progress in ensuring racial equality. So let's break this down. 52% overall. 58% of whites say that a great deal of progress or a fair amount has been made. 30% of blacks, 45% of Hispanics, and 47% of Asians. Then they break it down by politics. Republican leaning, 67%. Democrat leaning, 38%. Now, can someone please explain to me why? So, whites, I get that. I would assume that. Unless they're communists, then they're gonna say no because they're down with the people, man. Or they're in office in San Francisco, they would say no. Can someone explain to me though this disparity? This disparity is interesting to me. Blacks say 30% say that a great deal or a fair amount of progress has been made. Why does that number jump from 30 to 45 when it comes to Hispanics and then 47% Asian? Why is there such a big disparity between Hispanics and blacks when it comes to racial equality in the numbers, they say? Let's go over some progress. Some progress, they say all adults, average was 33%. Some progress, 30% of whites, 38% of blacks, 35% of Hispanics, and 41% of Asians. And then we come down to the political spectrum. 22% of Republican leaning, and then 43% of Democrats. Okay. Now let's get to this number. Not much or no progress at all when it comes to racial equality in the last 60 years. Here it is. The average was 15. Whites 11, blacks 32%, Hispanics 19, Asians 11%, Republicans 10. Democrats 19. Look at this despair. Almost 3 times as many blacks. Wow. This is just so wild to me, dude. See, here's what. This is the problem. You know what? You know why I say this whole thing is manufactured for profit? Look at the disparity. Look at the disparity between the number of blacks who think that a great deal of progress has been made versus Hispanics. In the media, day and night, all they talk about is how the black man is oppressed, the black woman is a victim. If you say that enough, people will believe it. Whether it's true or not doesn't matter anymore. What matters is that they believe it to be true. Are we forgetting that up until very recently, there was this thing called affirmative action? Are we going to forget about that? It was so powerful, you had white women like Elizabeth Warren pretend to be Native American to get ahead. That's how bad the system was against whites. You had to pretend like you weren't white to try to get into a good school. I remember a couple years ago when I first tried to get into college, I wanted to go to Cal Poly in San Luis Obispo, California. I applied, and they said that they had met their quota of white applicants, and they weren't gonna let me in. Oh yeah, it had nothing to do with my grades. I'm not making this up, by the way. It had nothing to do with my grades, nothing to do with my extracurricular activities, nothing to do with my SAT score. You know, back then it actually still mattered. None of it had everything to do with the fact that I was a white man. I'm not saying I'm a victim. I'm saying I know what affirmative action does to people. And even though affirmative action does not exist anymore, officially, there are still schools who will use it because it makes them look good on demographics-wise. My mother, God bless her, would tell me a story about how she was valedictorian of her class in high school. Her salutatorian was Hispanic. My mother did not get into Stanford. Her salutatorian did because she was Hispanic. You see how they're... Explain to me why my mother, who got amazing scores, the top of her class, did not get into Stanford, but her salutatorian, who did not have as good a grades as her, did not have as good as scores as her, but was Hispanic, got into Stanford. You think that race might have something to do with that? Oh, but all whites are racist, right? Sure. Absolutely not. All right, let's get down to this. All right, here we go. Oh my God, that's shocking. Really? Wow, I'm shocked. Most black adults and Democrats say efforts to ensure racial equality haven't gone far enough. Oh my God, that's shocking. Really? If you happen to be black and a Democrat, you would say that race relations are bad? Wow, it's almost like you probably watch ABC, MSNBC, CNN, in my opinion, all of them. It's almost like they watch them day and night. They go on social media and they're told how they're an oppressed minority, and then they're like, oh yeah, I'm oppressed, man. Unbelievable to me. Let's look at the numbers. All right, let's see. Percent saying efforts to ensure equal rights for all people in the United States, regardless of race or ethnicity. Okay. All adults. They say those who have gone too far. All adults, 20% overall. Whites, 24% of whites says that this so-called equal rights has gone for all people have gone too far. 7% of blacks, 15% of Hispanics, 19% of Asians, 37% of Republicans, and then they say 6%. I don't know where they're getting. Oh, okay, never mind. All right, not gone far enough. 52% overall. 44% of whites said that the efforts for racial equality have not gone far enough. 83% of blacks say that the ensuring equal rights for all people has not gone far enough. 58% of Hispanics and then 55% of Asians. Been just right. So we've achieved racial equality right here at the very end. 27%, 30% of whites, 9% of blacks, 25% of Hispanics, 26% of Asians. My friends, how can you not look at these numbers and tell me that the media is not pushing this narrative? Social media, the mainstream media, you name it, all of them are pushing this propagandist lie. Right here. This is the proof. These are all these are Democrat numbers. There's most black adults and Democrats. Do you think there's an overlap there? I think there might be. Say efforts to ensure racial equality have not gone far enough. Now, when I saw these, I said, what? How is this possible? So you know what I did? I'll show you what I did. I went on Google, the oracle, that's the source of all things. And I typed in the following question. I said to Google, what rights do white people have that minorities don't? You want to see the results? Here they are. Same article we were just on is at the very top. Then we have our views on race and inequality. We have understanding white privilege at number 3. Center for American Progress. What is that? A front for the Democrat Communist Party USA? What is this? Systematic inequality. What is white privilege really? The ACLU. Oh, God. I should do a whole show on the ACLU. They are a front group for the Communist Party, in my opinion. They are a front for the Communist Party. The American Civil Liberties Union should have their name changed to the... you know what? I'll leave it at that. It's a family show. Let's see. Race, ethnicity, or national origin-based discrimination. You get it, the standard crap. Oh, Time Magazine says, it's time for white people to understand their whiteness. Can you imagine if I did an article on it's time for black people to understand their blackness? Do you think that might not be, do you think that might be frowned upon? I think it might be. But for some reason, this is okay. Whiteness. What is this idea that, okay, here's the problem. You see, this is the problem. They don't have an actual answer to the question. I said, what rights? I didn't say, I said, what rights? Human rights. We're talking about, let's go back to the article. It says, this whole chart says, saying efforts to ensure equal rights for all people in the United States. They say that 83% of blacks in this survey say not enough. They don't have equal rights. Well, I type into Google, okay, what rights do white people have that everybody else doesn't? There is no answer. There is no, I'm so glad you asked. Here it is. There's nothing. Look, it just says views on race, white privilege, systemic inequality. They don't have an answer. They don't say there is this civil human right that black or brown people don't have that white people do. There is no answer to the question. None. And all they talk about is the myth of reverse racism. So in other words, when a black person comes up to you if you're white and says that you're a colonizing cracker, that's not racism. When in actuality, that's one of the most racist things you could ever say. Because you're assuming that their ancestors were colonizers or that their ancestors were slaveholders because they're white, when in fact less than 1% of whites in the South owned slaves because they couldn't afford to. And then part of that 1% of 1 to 2% of slave owners were also freed blacks. But you don't want to know that because that makes you uncomfortable to know that. Also, when it comes to colonizing, there were no white people who ran over to Africa and kidnapped helpless black people. It was the tribal leaders of various black tribes in Africa that would conquer each other and sell them to the Arab Muslim slave traders, who then sold them to North America, South America, in North Africa, Europe, and the Middle East. But you don't know that because you weren't taught that. Because if you were taught that, you might actually say, "Oh, hold on a minute, Austin. What did you just say?" Yeah, you heard me. You don't believe it? Look it up for yourself. I'm not making this up. I don't make up history, my friends. I am merely one of the custodians. I don't make this stuff up. Again, when you actually ask the straight up question, I'll show you the question again. What rights do white people have? I'll highlight it. What rights do white people have that minorities don't? Question mark was my question to Google. And there is no answer. They don't give me a direct answer. They don't even offer to give me an AI-generated answer because they don't have one. It's all fake. It's all fake garbage. Now, are there individual people who are racists? Yes. On all stripes, all colors, all politics, there are people who are individual racists. That is an undisputable fact. But the system is not racist. And if it is, it's against white people. Because guess what? We don't have... You know what's the biggest disadvantage on earth right now in America? Being poor, being white, and being not connected. Because they'll assume that if you're white, you have an advantage, when in fact, you don't. Because every company wants to hire you if you're not white, because it makes them look better, and it makes them have a more diverse workplace, which is the new virtue signaling of the day. It has nothing to do with the fact that you can actually do the job. That's just a bonus. It has everything to do with the fact that you look a certain way, you act a certain way, and that's it. Or have a certain sexual orientation. We'll throw that in there too. I might as well offend everybody today. I'm not trying to tell you that if you've experienced individual racism in your life, that didn't happen. It did happen. What I'm telling you is that there is no systematic boogeyman coming after you or keeping you down. It has everything to do with family privilege, nothing to do with white privilege. And if you want to debate me on a subject, you're more than welcome to do it. I don't find it a coincidence that the black community has the worst problem with family, and then we'll have the biggest one screaming racism. I know black people in my life who I went to high school with, in a private school. I didn't hear them scream about racism because their parents put in hard work. They paid their dues. They didn't have baby mama drama. They didn't have all this BS garbage going on. Child support, alimony, court-ordered garbage. No, they had two-parent households like everyone else did. And if we white people are so evil and so bad, why are the Asians done so well in America? They're the ones that are getting wrecked in Harvard. That's why the affirmative action case even came as far as it did. My friends, I want you to wake up to the fact that this is just big business. This is just the media trying to make money off hatred, in my estimation. And guess what? This research proves it. Look, I'll show it again. The numbers of people who believe that race relations have gotten so much worse and it hasn't helped and that we're just as bad as it's ever been. It's not true. It's just not true. Because then when I actually ask the question, there's no answer. You would think that if there's such a strong case for white privilege, they could explain to me what rights that white people have that everyone else doesn't, and they can't. They can't. Because I looked it up and there's no answer. There's no direct answer. There's just mental gymnastics and garbage and fluff and BS. So the next time you hear someone telling you that there's systematic racism in the country, you can just tell them this.
One thing for sure, though.
You can just tell them that they're liars. And they know they're lying.
One thing for sure, though. Can't blame this one on the white man. What am I saying? Of course I can.
Telling you, man. When it comes down to it, that's just an unfortunate reality that I wish I could tell you that everybody knew and accepted, but they just simply don't. So my friends, let's stop making garbage up and let's stop being difficult for no reason, and let's actually address problems that maybe if they're individual problems, we can address them. But let's stop lying about what's actually happening in our society, and let's stop letting the media make a bag off of pitting us against each other and letting the politicians divide and conquer us. My friends, God bless you. God bless your families. God bless America. Let's not let them tear us apart for profit. And let's address real issues that affect real people. Have a great day. I'm out of here. Take care of yourselves. Happy Veterans Day to my fellow vets out there. Peace.